Well, we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the final video in our Doors series. We have covered all of the studio albums, reviewed them all on this channel, and tonight we're going to be ranking all 8 of the Doors studio albums from worst to best. I got Nick from Townsend 505 and Scott from SoundLab Studios who have joined me on this series. How are you guys doing tonight?
Very good.
Doing good, doing good.
Great to hear. So now that we've listened to all of the Doors albums before we do this ranking, what are your guys' thoughts on the Doors as a whole now that we've covered all their albums?
Well, I've always been a big Doors fan, and I still am a big Doors fan. There's going to be a couple of albums I'm not a big fan of, but the top albums really do prove why I really love the Doors.
If we're talking about the real Doors albums, all 6 of those are all really great. And I didn't like the Doors as much when I first started listening to them just because some of their stuff is really an acquired taste because Jim Morrison was a poet and they had kind of an artsy aspect to them that it may take a few listens before you start understanding what they're going for. But as far as the 6 albums with Jim Morrison on them, all of those are amazing. I really like the instrumentation, Ray Manzarek especially as a keyboard player. The 2 albums that they made after Jim Morrison died, I will never listen to again. Those are 2 of the worst albums I've ever heard. They should have just stopped.
All right, so listening to the Doors, all of their studio albums for the first time, they have some amazing hit singles. I love the musicianship in this band. Jim Morrison is a really good singer and a great songwriter, even though sometimes his poetry can get a little pretentious at times. The 2 albums that came out after Morrison's death probably should not have been made. They couldn't find a vocalist that was as good as Jim Morrison. The singing is usually terrible on these 2 albums. Yet some of the songs can be so bad it's hilarious, and we'll explain that when we go into some of these songs, especially on their swan song, if you want to call it that.
No. LA Woman is their swan song. Riders on the Storm. That's their real last big hurrah.
But I will say listening to the Doors made me appreciate them a little bit more. I do like the quality of a lot of their music, and they definitely were one of the highlight groups, especially in blues rock and also psychedelic rock. And they were able to blend that very well together. So we'll be going through our ranking. We're going to alternate each one of us. We're going to go through our 8 through 6, and then 5 through 3, and then go into our top 2. So, Nick, what are your bottom 3 Doors albums?
Okay, before we get into that, I will give a dishonorable mention because I am the only one here who has listened to it. An American Prayer, I really hate this album. That's all I'm going to give for it. Just poetry nonsense. Okay, now for the actual list. Number 8, give me Full Circle. This is their last album they released. This was released August 15th, 1972. I gave this album a 0.5 out of 10. This album was really, 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 really awful. I really hate this album. There's like nothing good about this album. Not a single song that I like from it. There's musically, it's okay. So that's why it's not a 0 out of 10. I only give 0 out of 10 for what I think is the worst album ever made. This is not the worst album ever made, thankfully. But tracks like The Mosquito, the good rockin', like just some abysmal stuff. What a awful way to end their discography. Now we get to number 7, Other Voices. This was released October 18th, 1971. This followed the passing of Jim Morrison. I don't know. Do you remember what score I gave it originally?
I don't, but it was low. I think you gave it like either a 1 or a 2.
Yeah,
It
I
was
know
not,
you weren't a fan of this album.
yeah, I think I gave it a 2 out of 10. That's something that I should give it if it's not if it's not that. So 2 out of 10, not good at all. Again, I could hear like this is the album where I could really hear them. Like I could hear the music from the last album, L.A. Woman. Like I could hear like where Jim Morrison would have played in, especially in the Eye of the Sun. That sounds like a song that would have been really awesome as an album opener had Jim Morrison sing it instead of Ray Manzarek. This has arguably one of their worst songs, "Honey, I'm Horny and I'm Stoned." It's not the worst song. The last album has the worst song, but this is definitely up there for one of the worst songs I've ever heard from them. But yeah, that's number 7. I'm sorry if you're a Doors fan who loves these albums. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion. There's a reason why the Doors wanted to keep this thing buried, these 2 albums buried for a very long time. And I'm pretty sure Jacob and Scott will agree with me on these 2 albums. Now for my number 6. So now we're going to move on to the Jim Morrison era. My number 6 is going to be Morrison Hotel. Yeah, this is my least favorite of the Morrison albums. This album starts out strong. You start out with Roadhouse Blues, Waiting for the Sun, You Make Me Real, Peace Frog, and Blue Sunday. Those 5 songs are like probably the best like first 5 stretches in an album. And then after that, it takes a big fat nosedive. Like one of the biggest, arguably probably one of the biggest nosedives in album history, in my opinion, where you just get quality after quality. And then after that, I hate every second of this album after that. Ship of Fools is very boring. Land Ho sounds like a goofy Disney song, like from a musical. I really don't like that one. The Spy, 4 minutes of just drag. Queen of the Highway. It's not the worst of the worst, but it's definitely weak. Indian Summer sounds like they took a snippet from the end, like a part of the end that they didn't want to keep in the end. It's just boring and just a bunch of nothing for 2.5 minutes. Then you end off with the very abysmal Maggie McGill. I never liked this song. I always felt like it was their worst album closer in the Morrison era, and I still stand by that. I'm gonna give this album a 4 out of 10 for the fact that it nosedives really drastically after the first 5 songs.
All right, let's go ahead and get it out of the way. My number 8 is Full Circle, one of the worst albums I've ever heard. It's absolute trash. There is really not very many redeeming qualities about this album. The first song, I think it's like Get Up and Dance or something like that. It is decent. After that, the rest of the album is just not even worth your time. Other than there's a really cool jam session on the Mosquito at the end, but you have to get through like 2.5 minutes of Ray Manzarek and Robbie Krieger doing a stupid it's like Spanish accent and something about a burrito. It's just nonsense and it's dumb and it's awful. It's almost not worth having to go through that to get to the jam session at the end. This also contains what I think is the Doors' worst song to date, Peking King and the New York Queen. If you thought the accent on the Mosquito was bad, they do like a Chinese accent on this one that it's very reminiscent of what David Bowie did on We Are Hungry Men. And if you know anything about my thoughts on that song, I hate that one as well because of the over the top accent is just ruins the whole moment of this. With that both of these songs weren't even good in the first place, but you throw in the stupid accent and it's like, okay, now it just made this song even worse because it really just added that level of cheesiness to it. So yeah, do not like that album. I will not be listening to that one again. It's awful. Number 7, Other Voices, not much better than Full Circle. It has a few more moments that I think, okay, there's at least like a couple moments on here of good musicianship. I don't even remember that much of the album. It's how boring most of it was. The song about the sales, whatever one that one was pretty okay. The one about Eye of the Sun, that one was all right, but there's also some very terrible songs on that album as well. Like I'm Horny, I'm Stoned, Down on the Farm. What's that other one? Variety is the Spice of Life. Those three songs can rot in the garbage can. They're just terrible. But the Other Voices gets the slight edge over Full Circle since it has a few moments that I think are listenable. A lot of boringness and some downright just terrible songs. So that's why it's number 7. And now we're going to get to number 6, which is a quantum leap in quality. I have Morrison Hotel, so I have the same bottom 3 as Nick. This album is so much better than the other two. It's my least favorite of the Morrison albums, only because I feel like it has just a few songs that don't stand out as much as the rest. But there's still some great stuff on here. I love, of course, Roadhouse Blues. That song is great. Waiting for the Sun's fantastic. Peace Frog, Blue Sunday. Those 4 songs are all amazing. The first 4 songs on the album. I even like some of the songs on the later half of the album. I actually like Ship of Fools, and I like The Spy. But Indian Summer, Maggie McGill, and especially Land Ho just don't stand out to me. Other than Land Ho stands out for the wrong reasons. Sounds more like someone doing a parody of a Doors song, especially when Jim Morrison does the stupid Land Ho bit near the end. I just did not like that song. But the rest of the album ranges from somewhat forgettable, still a lot better than the stuff on Other Voices, but somewhat forgettable to absolutely amazing with stuff like Roadhouse Blues. So that's my number 6, Morrison Hotel.
All right. So I'm probably going to have the most hot takes on my Doors ranking, but I'm going to stick by them because it's just my opinion. In last place, I have not Full Circle. The one I actually think Other Voices is the worst of the 2 post-Morrison Doors albums. I gave it a 3 out of 10. I thought out of all the Doors albums, this was the most boring of them all. Some of the musicianship is still good because of the remaining members. I liked a couple of songs on this album, like legit like them, like Ships with Sails and Tightrope Ride. But then you got songs like Down on the Farm, which is a really stupid song. I'm Horny, I'm Stoned, which I can't believe was actually a Doors song. And Variety is the Spice of Life, which sounds like the Doors doing a song from a preschool show. It is utterly stupid. I hated that song. And my vote for the worst Doors song of all time, which is part of the reason why I think it's their worst album, because it's got the 2 worst Doors songs on that album, Other Voices. Full Circle, I definitely don't like this album that much either. But vocally, this album is not really that great, and there are some stinker songs on this album, much like on the other one. But even some of the stinker songs I found so bad they're hilarious, like the Peking King one. That one was hilarious in all the wrong ways, and I kind of enjoyed it on that level. There are some songs I didn't care for. 4 Billion Souls, The Piano Bird, I thought was so dull and kind of a dumb concept, and it slipped my mind. I thought it was really annoying. Vertilac, which has some weird vocal effects on it. But then there's other songs like Get Up and Dance, I thought was better than anything on the last album. Hardwood Floor was an earworm. Their cover of Good Rockin', I thought was semi-decent. And then you got the Mosquito, which has that stupid Mexican accent, yes. But then it had one of the best jam sessions the Doors has ever done. So some of those moments, I'm like, I think as a whole, I enjoyed the musical elements of Full Circle more than I did the majority of Other Voices. But I still can't say it's a good album. And that, to me, it's a 5 out of 10 album. And then at number 6, which there is an increase in quality, but even with that, I still think this album is kind of overrated. At number 6, I have the debut self-titled album.
Oh.
Now, there are some highs on this album. I mean, it's got 2 of their big songs on it, like Break On Through to the Other Side, Light My Fire. Those are both classic Doors songs. for a reason. Break on Through is probably one of their best singles in general, and Light My Fire has some really good vocals from Jim Morrison. But there's other songs. Oh, Into the Night's a really good deep cut. The Crystal Ship I thought was a solid track. But then there's songs like Soul Kitchen, which I wasn't really that big of a fan of. When I listened to the song and hearing some of the chords, it was very, very similar to Louie Louie, and it took me out of it. So it kind of distracted me. The song Whiskey Bar, I thought was one of their most annoying songs. I could not stand that song. And I know that's a hot take because I know there's some people that love the song, but I thought it was a very stupid song. And then you have the end, which I think I'm the most conflicted on any Door song because I love the main melody. There's some good guitar stuff on that song. And I think if you just stuck with the original part of the end, like the first 4 minutes of the song, I think it'd be a top tier Door song. But then it goes on way too long. Jim Morrison singing rambling nonsense, and then there's that weird spoken poet bit at the end. And I'm like, oh, this is going on way too long. This is getting pretentious now. It should not have been an 11-minute long song. But the regular song, especially if you just hear what you hear in the Francis Ford Coppola movie Apocalypse Now, fantastic song. So the end is like probably the song I'm the most conflicted on. But the version that's on the studio album, beginning's good, and then it meanders into pretentious, rambling nonsense. So I like a lot of their other albums, but the debut album I think is a little overhyped. I think I respect it more than I really, really like it. Kind of similar how I feel about Led Zeppelin's first album, where there's still some good highs on it, but some of the psychedelic stuff on it wasn't really my thing, and which is why I only gave it a 6 out of 10, and it's number 6 on my ranking. So now we're down to 5 to 3. So Nick, kick us off on the middle of your ranking.
Alrighty. Well, my number 4 is going to
Or,
be.
what about number? You skip number 5.
Oh, sorry. My number 5 is going to be Strange Days. So, Strange Days. It's interesting. It's an interesting follow-up album after after their debut album. A little more experimentation. One of the first instances of a synthesizer. Pretty cool stuff. From here on, we're going to be getting to some awesome albums that I'm really, really looking forward to talking about. This one, I'm going to say is a 9 out of 10. So not quite a 10 out of 10, but still really, really good album. Strange Days, really cool song. Your Lost Little Girl, really cool. Love Me 2 Times, that's a great song. Love me 2 times, baby. Love me twice today. Unhappy Girl, still one of my favorite Door songs. Horse Latitudes is garbage. Gonna say anything more? That sucks. Moonlit Drive, never cared for it. People Are Strange, pretty cool song. My Eyes Have Seen You is okay. I Can't See Your Face in My Mind, I like. When the Music's Over, I think this is an epic closer. I think there's a part where it was like, we want the world, we want it now, or whatever, something like that. Pretty crazy stuff, but really awesome album. My number 4 is going to be LA Woman. Yes, a lot of people will say, that's your number 4? That's like their best album. Well, you'll know why I don't think it's their best album. For me, it's a 9.5 album. Not quite 10 for me. But there are a lot of great songs. The Changeling is awesome. Love Her Madly. It's also awesome. Been Down So Goddamn Long. Pretty cool. Car Hearse by My Window. That's how I feel about that song. Puts me to sleep. Then you get the very famous LA Woman, which I love that song. You get that awesome L'America to open up side 2. The Hyacinth House. Never could pronounce that name. I think that's pretty cool. But next 2 songs, don't really care for them. Crawling King Snake is okay, and The Wasp is just terrible. Or the parentheses, Texas Radio and the Big Beat.
I'm going to tell you about Texas Radio and the Big Beat.
Right? Sucks. Riders on the Storm, awesome album closer, and as far as I'm concerned, their last song. That's going to be my number 4. As for my number 3 is going to be the debut album, The Doors. So definitely up there. Again, a lot of Door fans will be, that's your number 3? That's like their best album, man. Well, we're going to disagree there, but we are now reaching 10 out of 10 for me. We're finally into the 10 out of 10 category. I think all 3 of these albums are amazing. That I'm going to be talking about Break On Through, awesome album opener. Soul Kitchen, I love that song. Crystal Ship, a really good ballad. 20th Century Fox, pretty catchy song. Alabama song, Whiskey Bar, I Don't Care. I love this song. Always been one of my favorite Door songs. And I love its German vibe to it. Light My Fire closes the first side out pretty well. Awesome instrumental. Backdoor Man, never been one of my favorite Door songs. Makes sense, it was a cover. I Looked at You is pretty cool, kind of like a cool surf vibe, like a cool psychedelic surfy vibe. End of the Night, really cool psychedelic song as well. Take It As It Comes, really great keyboard solo in the song. I love that song. And The End, which it's a grower. It wasn't one of my favorite Door songs. Still isn't one of my favorites, but I've come to grown to like it more. But that is my number 3, The Doors.
Well, there for a while I was like, Nick, did you look at my list? Because my number 5 is also Strange Days. At one point I had this higher whenever I listened to it for the review, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it at number 5. Listening to some of the other albums has kind of given me a higher appreciation for them. But Strange Days is actually a really good follow-up album. I mean, you have their really good debut album, and then it's like, well, are they going to have a sophomore slump, or are they going to follow this up well? And they did a pretty good job making a second album there. I really like People Are Strange, Strange Days, Moonlight Drive, Your Lost Little Girl, Love Me Two Times. Just some really good songs on here. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I actually think When the Music's Over is better than The End. I really think that's a cool album closer, especially kind of whenever it all cuts out and then the drums come in and Jim Morrison does that scream at the end. Super cool. Yeah, kind of taking what they did on the first album and amping up on the psychedelic, which is really cool. So it's going to be my number 5. And here it is again. Number 4 is LA Woman. So this was my favorite Doors album at one point, just because A, I think this is Jim Morrison's best album vocally, and B, this album has a lot of my top 10 favorite Doors songs, like more than 2 of my top 10 Doors songs are on this album. The only problem is that I realized that half of this album is like just a masterpiece, and half of this album I don't really care for a whole lot, which is why it's number 4. I feel like my top 3 kind of as a whole are better. This album has the highest highs, but the other 3 above it I think are better as a whole, so that's why I'm ranking them higher up. But you talk about those high highs. Riders on the Storm is my favorite Doors song. I just love the eerie vibe on that one, and I love the keyboards. The Changeling is probably their most underrated song, and probably Jim's best vocal performance, if you ask me. I just love his gravelly vocals on that one. LA Woman is another fantastic song with some great jamming on there. But then you also have stuff like Texas Radio and the Big Beat. Crawling King Snake is decent. But I'm not too big on like L'America, or I forget like one of the songs that's near the end of the first side. The first side has so many good songs, but there was one. Oh, it was Car Hiss by My Window is the one I'm thinking of. That one's kind of boring. But High Highs, I don't want to say low lows because the lowest low on this album, which is probably Texas Radio and the Big Beat, or L'America, nowhere near the lows of Full Circle. In fact, I think the lowest low on this album doesn't even reach the highest high of Full Circle. But still, nothing. Some of the stuff I just think is not as good, so that's going to be my number 4. Number 3, Nick, our lists finally change. I have Waiting for the Sun at number 3. This album kind of took me a while to get into. The first time I heard it, I was like, it's decent. But the more I've listened to it, the more I've kind of grown to appreciate it. This is definitely the most chill of the Doors albums. All of the songs on there, other than the Lizard King one, what is the name of that? Not to Touch the Earth. All the other songs on the album just have a really chill vibe, and I like that about it. Not to Touch the Earth is kind of freaky, but thankfully it's not an extremely long song. Their original plan was to make that like a 20-minute song called The Lizard King or something like that, and I'm glad they didn't do that, because I've heard a live recording of the full thing, and it's like, nah, that's a little too pretentious. But what they have here is, I really hated that song the first time I heard it. I still don't like it, but it's not my least favorite Doors song anymore when you've got stuff like I'm Horny, I'm Stoned, and the Peking King. But I really like the chill songs on here, like Hello, I Love You. I love this little synthesizer thing that bounces from one ear to the other, like the Wintertime Love, Yes, the River Knows, We Can Be So Good Together, 5 to 1, Unknown Soldier. All the songs on here just really cool and kind of textbook definition of what made the Doors so great, and that's why I got that at number 3.
All right. So up until number 3, it's like Nick and Scott were inseparable. It's like they were plagiarizing each other. That's what it is. My 5 through 3, all 3 of these albums are 8 out of 10. My number 5, I'm probably going to be the lowest on this one. The Soft Parade is my number 5. Now, there is some really good stuff on this album. Touch Me, that's one of the Doors' biggest hits. Really good soulful song on it. I think there's a lot of soulfulness on this album that is actually really, really good. Jason commented, did we just start? No, we started about 30 minutes ago. We're going through our ranking all the Doors albums. We're going through 5 through 3 right now. This is my number 5, The Soft Parade. Very soulful album. Tell All the People. I didn't really like that one. That's the album opener. But they still keep their signature sound on this album too. That's really good. Like especially on songs like Wishful Sinful, which is another really good song, and Shaman's Blues. Running Blue is a really fun deep cut. They sink in a little bit of country elements, especially in the chorus, and they have, I think it's Raymond Zarek actually do the vocals there. His vocal work on that song is better than anything on the last 2 albums, so I gotta give credit for that at least. I don't think the back half of the album is as good as the first half. The first half, which has songs like the Tell the People and Touch Me and Shaman's Blues. I think Wishful Sinful's on the first half as well. Or is that on side B? I don't remember.
I think that's the second to last song.
Oh, well, never mind then. But I think as a whole, I like side A more than I do side B. Side B has Wishful Sinful and Running Blue, but some of the songs in there I don't think are as memorable. Songs like Wild Child. Um, I really don't like the album closer, The Soft Parade. There's this weird spoken word bit, which I thought was really weird. And the song just kind of meanders from there. And I think a lot of the album closers and a lot of the Doors albums are like that, where they do the weird, meandering, nonsensical songs that I just don't really care for from the Doors. I like it when Jim Morrison has some really smart words in his songs. And the Soft Parade just didn't do it for me, but still a fun album. And I like that they experimented a little bit, did a more softer, soulful album that has some different instrumentations in it. Like some of the horns on some of these songs are actually really, really cool. But then my number 4, I'm going with Strange Days. I also gave this an 8 out of 10. This is the album that has People Are Strange on it. That's another great song from the Doors. I think I tend to hear that song a lot, especially around Halloween, and I can see why. It's a great song. Uh, I Love Me Two Times. That's apparently that was a hit song, but I never heard it until going through the album, and I thought Love Me Two Times was my favorite song on that album. Then you also got songs like Your Lost Little Girl, very haunting track. Unhappy Girl is an underrated gem. Moonlight Drive, I like the title track as well. But much like what Nick and Scott have already brought up, Horace Latitudes does not need to be on this album. His spoken poetry garbage, terrible. And I feel the same way about When the Music's Over as I do The End and The Soft Parade. It's another one where it's like, I like the song musically, but it's another one of weird, pretentious, lyrical, meandering nonsense songs that goes on too long. So I wasn't a real big fan of that one. But I do like the album as a whole. I thought I was really not going to like the Doors that much after I was so disappointed with the first album. I was thinking, oh, I'm going to be dismissing the Doors as a singles band and nothing else. But Strange Days was the album that proved me wrong. And I liked all of the other albums in the Morrison era over the self-titled debut album. And then at number 3, I'm going with Jim Morrison's last album, L.A. Woman. I really like this album. It actually has my favorite Doors song on it, which is Riders on the Storm. I'm definitely in agreement with Scott there. Great song. And it's easily their best album closer, now that I think about it. It's that good of a song. I really like, especially the piano part, the keyboard part on it, and some of the sound and vocal effects on the song. It's a really cool song. And even with the extended runtime, I never get bored by it. The album also has Love Her Madly, which is a fun pop rock song with some great vocal work. The Changeling is awesome. That's one of the best deep cuts on the album. The title track is really good. And the Hyacinth House, I think is how you pronounce it. The only reason that it's not any higher than where it is, because some people rate it as their best Doors album. Been Down So Long, I thought was a generic Doors song. It almost felt like a parody at times, which it wasn't really my thing. Car Sits By My Window, I agree, very boring song. And I thought The Wasp was really stupid. I did not care for that song. 1 minute, and it's easily the biggest outlier in an otherwise really good album. So now we're getting to our top 2 Doors albums. So Nick, top us off.
All right. My number 2 is going to be Waiting for the Sun. This album was released in 1968. So the follow-up to the Strange Days album. This is yet another 10 out of 10 album. I love this album. Like Scott was saying, this is a very chill album. And so many great songs like Hello, I Love You, Love Street. Those are like 2 pop songs. And you got Not to Touch the Earth, which is a pretty cool psychedelic song. You get Summer's Almost Gone, like the ballad. And then you get a waltz type song with Wintertime Love. and cap it off with The Unknown Soldier to end off the first side. Again, not a fan of the whole marching band thing in the middle of it, but doesn't take away from the song. Spanish Caravan, I love that song. Same with My Wild Love, and We Could Be So Good Together. Oh, so good together. Yes, the River Knows, pretty good ballad, and 5-1, pretty cool album closer. As for my favorite Doors album, give me the Soft Parade. This was released 1969, and this is their best album. I started off with Tell All the People. I love the brass on that. We'll continue off with that on this album with a few more songs. Touch Me, awesome song. Another awesome song written by Robbie Krieger. Come on now, touch me, babe. Ba-ba-ba-bum. Very iconic. Got the really cool bluesy Sherman's Blues. I love that song. One of my favorite songs from The Doors. Do It. I love that song. Please, please listen to the children. Please, please listen to the children. Easy Ride. Pretty fun song. Wild Child. I'm going to disagree with you again, Jacob. I love Wild Child. I love the guitar. Running Blue. Pretty fun song. Wishful Sinful. One of my favorite Doors songs. And the Soft Parade. It's a nice, cool trip of a song. Yeah, it's my favorite Doors album.
And what's your number one?
That was my number one.
Oh, wow. Whoa, you just said that. I
It's okay.
feel
It's
so
okay.
I feel so stupid for
No. You're not stupid. You're not stupid. It's I'm telling you, I've had brain farts like that too sometimes.
oh wow.
No, I
Forgive me.
quick. That was the problem. I said it too quick. I said it in quick succession. That's why. So I'll take that.
Forgive me for that brain
Okay.
fart of stupidity.
No, you're good. You're good.
Jason's like, oh, I must have missed most of the list. Yeah, we're already in our top two, but you
wouldn't
can
have wanted
always
to
go
hear us
back.
talk about the bad albums, the bottom two.
We can always go back and watch the replay and hear us crap on the post Jim Morrison Doors albums.
Everybody had those in the bottom two, and everybody said terrible things about those. I'm gonna pull a little switcheroo. I had the top two reversed, but I'm gonna switch them at the last minute. Not just because I want to have a different list than Nick, but just rethinking about it. There's a particular Doors album that I just keep going back to that I listen to more than the other ones, and that's why I'm gonna make the switch. So my number two is gonna be The Soft Parade. Definitely their most experimental album. I actually really like what they do with the orchestra, kind of adding that in, because that was kind of a gamble. It was different than what they had done on their previous albums, and a lot of people hated it. I actually really liked the album for that. They tried something different. Tell All the People. I love the triumphant brass on there. Touch Me is an earworm. That's one of my favorite Doors songs. I just love that. And that saxophone solo at the end just hits hard. Every time you hear it, it's like, oh, so good. Wishful Sinful, really underrated song. I like that one. I love the string section on that. Amazing ballad. Running Blues is so fun. Having Robbie Krieger do the vocal on that, it actually works there. Whenever he sings on the other albums, not good, but his vocals 100% work there. And then I actually like the album closer, Soft Parade. I think it's really cool and experimental. I mean, the weird mock sermon thing at the beginning is weird. But after that, I think it's all really cool. Especially there's like a proto-disco section. In 1969 or 68, whenever this came out, 68, the Doors were doing like a proto-disco thing. Like, way before disco was even a thing. So I thought that was really cool. It goes through so many different styles, and it's like, where is this song going? And ultimately, it really leads to nowhere, but I think that's what makes the song, is just all the different meandering styles that it goes through. And yes, I like it better than both the end and When the Music's Over. So that's my number two. My number one, It was my number 2, but I'm switching it to my number 1 because this is the Doors album that I've been listening to the most. Soft Parade, whenever we reviewed it, I gave it a 10 out of 10, and I gave this particular album a 9 out of 10. I think I would switch the scores. Rethinking about it, Soft Parade has a few songs I don't like as much, like Wild Child, or I like the Please Please Listen to the Children song, but it's not my favorite. But The Doors self-titled at number 1. All of the songs that I said that I didn't like whenever we reviewed the album, now I like them. I don't know what it was. It was repeated listens or what. But listening to this album repeatedly has finally made me grow to appreciate it. Especially thinking about it in 1967, there was nothing out like this at the time. This really was a game changer. Especially dropping on and hearing that drum intro to Break On Through to the Other Side. Such a cool way to start the album off. I love the Break On Through to the Other Side. Break on through to the other side. Great way to start the album. Soul Kitchen, I like Soul Kitchen now. I said before that I didn't like the one. I like that one. Now I like the organ on that one. 20th Century Fox, also catchy, kind of a similar vibe. And then, of course, you got Light My Fire, one of their, if not their biggest song. I love the organ on that one. And I'm kind of dispelling everything that I said on the review because my opinions have changed on this album. I like the extended jamming now. I like how each instrument gets a turn to kind of just wander around and have fun playing and jamming. The drums, the keyboard, the guitar, and then it all just comes back together with that very classically inspired organ intro. Yes, I do like the Whiskey Bar song. Is it a little dumb? Yes, but it's fun. Second half, I Looked at You is a fun little surf song. I like that one. Backdoor Man is all right. End of the Night is super cool. That's a song that you should add to your Halloween playlist if you haven't. If you've ever heard End of the Night by The Doors. Super creepy, but it's really cool. And then you gotta Take It As It Comes, which is cool, and then The End, which I've said that I have other songs that are like better than it, but this was kind of the original like 10-minute epic album closer for The Doors. I like the main part of the song. I do kind of agree with Jacob. It gets a little weird at the end with like that Oedipus Rex thing where they're talking about the killer going in and with his boots down the hall and all that stuff. But I do like the Blue Bus section, and I like the jamming that they do near the end where it just like keeps getting faster and faster and faster until it just goes like bow, 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 and then it gets back to the This Is the End. Yeah, it's one of the best albums of 1967 and one of the best albums of the 60s. So that's going to be my number 1. It's The Doors, self-titled album.
All right. My top 2 is completely different than both of you guys combined.
Okay.
So my number 2 is Waiting for the Sun. I gave this a 9 out of 10. By this point, when going through the albums, after liking Strange Day and really liking Waiting for the Sun, I'm like, okay, I definitely see the appeal for The Doors. The big song on this album is Hello, I Love You. Really great song. But this album's got some of their best deep cuts on it. 5 to 1. That's an album closer I almost forgot about until you guys mentioned it. That's a good album closer. So this and Riders on the Storm are the 2 best album closers that The Doors have ever had. I do think 5 to 1's a good one. We Could Be So Good Together had this fun little groove to it that I really like. Summer's Almost Gone. Beautifully crafted song. I love the guitar work on Spanish Caravan. That's an awesome song. And then My Wild Love is this a cappella tune that is really haunting that I really like. And then there's The Unknown Soldier, which is another haunting track tied to the Vietnam War, which is a really powerful song. Not a fan of Not to Touch the Earth. That's one of those weird, pretentious, rambly Jim Morrison songs that I just can't get on board with. It's another one that I just wasn't really that big. The rest of the album is so chill that Not to Touch the Earth feels out of place. It doesn't really belong on this album. I don't think I would have minded it as much if it was on any of their other albums that was not Waiting for the Sun. Maybe if it was on Strange Days or even the debut album, I think I would have maybe tolerated it a little better. But I do think it's better than songs like the parts I hate about the end, When the Music's Over, Soft Parade. So I will give it that. So 9 out of 10 for Waiting for the Sun. And I may be the only one in existence that has this as my favorite Doors album. It was divisive when I gave it this high of a score when we reviewed this album. But this was the album that I dug the most out of all of the songs on this, or out of all the albums the Doors have ever done. My favorite Doors album is Morrison Hotel. I still think this is their best album, which is weird saying that because Nick did not like this album. Scott I don't think he hated it as much as Nick does, but he didn't care for it like I do. But man, I don't even know how to explain it. I thought out of all the Doors albums, I thought Morrison Hotel was the most consistent. I think it was the Doors at their most polished. And I loved every single song on this album. Roadhouse Blues is the most recognizable song on it. It's an awesome blues rocker. Waiting for the Sun has some really cool production on it. I love the vocal work on that song. And I think it's one of the best psychedelic rock songs the Doors have ever done. I love Peace Frog was a really fun song. You Make Me Real, really awesome song with a great piano riff. Blue Sunday is really good. Land Ho. I think Land Ho is a cool song. It's goofy, yes, but it's fun hearing the Doors sing almost like a piratey sea shanty. I kind of enjoyed that. And I might be the biggest fan of The Spy out of all of us. I thought The Spy was a really unique attempt to incorporate almost like a jazzy sound into their music, and I thought it was really, really awesome. Indian Summer, I thought, was a beautiful song. Yeah, similar to The End, but hey, it's not as long as pretentious as The End, and I thought it was a beautiful love song. Maggie McGill, I can agree, not the best album closer, but I didn't hate the song. I think maybe if Indian Summer was the album closer, I think I might love the album even more than I already do. But Maggie McGill's still good for what it is, though. I don't have any real issues with it. But yeah, I love the Morrison Hotel album. It's got a good little mix of rockers, some slower, mellow songs. Like I said, I love the consistency, the production, and the polishedness of this album. I thought I may be the only one that has this at number one. I'm curious if anyone's watching this and actually agrees with me. That's actually be really cool. But yeah, Morrison Hotel. That is my favorite Doors album. I guess I'll die on that hill. So that's all of our rankings. You guys want to do like a recap of all of our rankings before we wrap up?
All right.
Okay. My number 8 was Full Circle. My number 7 was Other Voices. My number 6 was Morrison Hotel. My number 5 was Strange Days. My number 4 was LA Woman. My number 3 was The Debut. My number 2 was Waiting for the Sun. And my number 1 is Soft Parade.
Number 8, Full Circle. Number 7, Other Voices. Number 6, Morrison Hotel. Number 5, Strange Days. 4, LA Woman. Number 3, Waiting for the Sun. Number 2, Soft Parade. And number 1, The Doors.
All right, my ranking, which is probably the wildest out of the three of us. Number 8, Other Voices. Number 7, Full Circle. Number 6, The Doors. Number 5, The Soft Parade. Number 4, Strange Days. Number 3, LA Woman. Number 2, Waiting for the Sun. Number 1, Morrison Hotel. And then I did manage to keep track of our average scores. I know, Scott, you said you changed some of yours at the last minute, but this is how the scores will reflect how we rated the albums as we went along. But no surprise, in last place of the average is Full Circle, which was a 2.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's a bad average.
Yeah. Nick and Scott, you really helped bring that one down.
Good.
Number 7, Other Voices, not faring much better at a 3 out of 10. And then number 6, Morrison Hotel, 7 out of 10. Nick, you really brought that one down. much to my annoyance. And then number 5 is The Doors at an 8.25 out of 10. But I think,
That's still not a
Scott,
bad
knowing that
average.
you brought it up to it, I definitely brought that one down. But that's still a good average. Number 4, LA Woman with an 8.5 out of 10. Number 3, Strange Days with a 9 out of 10. And then number 2 at a 9.25 out of 10. Waiting for the Sun, which means, considering I probably gave it the lowest score out of the three of us, the highest rated Doors album on average at a 9.5 out of 10 was The Soft Parade.
My album was the best. Let's go.
Oh, my album is the popular choice, so.
Yep. And my album is the unpopular hot take choice.
You know what? I was just glad whenever you said that was a 10 out of 10 that you actually gave a Doors album a 10 out of 10. I was glad to see that, even if it was my least favorite Jim Morrison one.
Yeah. I guess you never know. But anyway, that wraps up our Doors series, wrapping up a pretty fun little series, going through all their albums. It was fun going through their discography, and now that we've ranked all their albums, I'm hoping now that we're done with the Doors, I'm hoping to get back and restarting the Elton John series.
Yes.
It'll be the two of us, and of course, I know Jason's in the live chat, so he's been joining us in some of these later ones, so hopefully he'll join us as well on the remaining Elton John albums. The last one we did was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. So hopefully we'll get back starting with Caribou, which I've already heard that album. Really, really good stuff. I'm excited to talk about that one. So before we wrap up, do you guys have any final words on the Doors?
Love the Doors, and great way to end the series.
This is the end, beautiful friends.
Yep. Well, this may be the end for the Doors, but for Elton John, land ho! All right. Well, you guys take care. You all have a good night, and we'll see you all in the next one. Good night, everybody.